Hello, listeners. My name is Charles Scott. The
All right.
program you're watching
We gotta
is
start
called...
over. Quick. You don't got me right. Look at my banner. I don't know who PGB is.
That's Mrs. Brown.
Oh, that's hers? All right, can we start over? Yeah. Okay. Charles Scott Jr.
PPG is-
Oh, that's her.
Hello, listeners. My name is Charles Scott. The program in which you're about to watch is called Can We Talk? We come to you on a weekly basis, and I'm here with...
Charles Scott Jr. How you guys doing? Thanks for tuning in this week. And like we do every week, we're here to help the people.
And we represent Tri-State Realty. We are a full-service real estate company. Every week we give you information as to what's happening within the economy and some of the
Yes.
things that are happening out there that might affect your life and some of the things and decisions that you might be making pertaining to real estate and overall the economy. Some of the things that we are going to be talking about today is if you're planning on selling a house or listing
Yes.
a house, and there's been, sort of a fright in the what do you call it, the economy
Yeah, I would say
over the
like-
weekend.
I would say, yeah, a lot of things have gone down over the weekend. You know, people are just looking at the news, wondering how secure their banks may or may not be. But, you know, we got the information from the government today. The president said, you know, banks are good. Keep your money in there and, like, it'll build your interest. But what we want to talk about today is the spring season is upon us when it comes to real estate. And right now, spring is a busier time than just, you know, the winter time. Like we said last week, the sun stays out longer. People
That's
are seeing
right.
more properties. And people come from further away. We get a lot of people from, in our particular situation, we're here in the Fairfield County, we get a lot of people from New York who come up and they stay longer. Sometimes they stay over because they know they have more time to look at houses during the day.
Daylight savings time. I love it.
Yes.
I love it.
Yes.
You know, it's like I said last session that we had, when we're in the dark, that's when we get a vacation because it's kind of hard to go around looking at homes with a flashlight. So now with the daylight savings time, we're going to have more time to show homes.
Yes.
More people will come out. And what do they say? Spring is sprung. So now is a
Yes.
good time for people to get out there and start looking for homes. One of the things that we wanted to talk about is on the listing side. What's happening in the market right now is we need homes to sell. We need stock. We need inventory.
The inventory, we're short right now.
Short of inventory. That's one of the reasons why the prices have sort of been propped up by
Yes.
that, the shortage of inventory
Across the board.
across the board. And within the last year, it's a lot of people are looking for two-family houses.
Yes.
It's like a run on the two-family houses. Everybody, I'd say almost 70% of the people that walk into the office, I want a two-family, I want a two-family.
And to expand on that, what I see mostly online, whether it be Facebook or other social media, Instagram, people are seeing what is called house hacking. Is when you move into the house, you live downstairs, you get a tenant free upstairs, and the tenant helps you pay the mortgage or helps you overpay the mortgage. You actually make profit to live in your house rent free. You see a lot of people promoting this, and what it's doing is making a trend for people to say, well, I want my house to be a multi-family house, my first purchase. But remember, there are single families out there. That's also a good decision also.
Exactly. What I want to talk about today is some of the pros and cons of a two-family house.
Yes.
Because we got so much interest in people wanting to investment in a two-family house. My first concern is if you're not landlord material and if you're not a people's person,
Yes,
please reconsider buying a multi-family or a two-family house.
please. It's a people business.
It's a people's business. You have to be a people's person. You cannot set rules and guidelines and like a soldier, people march in, go to work, come home, and tiptoe up, and they're quiet, and the kids tiptoe across the floor. You have to make some sacrifices
Yes.
because the tenant has rights,
Yes, they do.
and you just cannot. You can say in your lease certain things you want done, certain things that they have to abide by, but you have to be very careful in what your expectations are. I think that's what it is.
Especially, I was not there too. If you're a landlord that's going to be living out of state, we have a lot of people that come in. They want to buy a house in Connecticut, and they go back to where they live, whether it be New York, Massachusetts. Remember, when you're out of state, you might get a call, 2 a.m., middle of the night? Oh,
2 o'clock.
toilet's broken. What do you do at that point? What if you don't own any local contractors? So make sure, if you're going to buy a multifamily house, make sure you are going to be ready for those type of calls and those type of emergencies.
Because you will get those calls.
Yeah, it's inevitable.
I can put down probably 100 things that will happen and 100 calls that you will get. And no matter how you prepare for those calls, it's something that you're probably not even thinking about. You know,
Never.
you could have wiring in your home, and all of a sudden the tenant plugs in the vacuum cleaner and plugs in the microwave at the same time, and all of a sudden the lights go out.
Yes.
Maybe the circuit breaker flipped, and they don't know where the circuit breaker is, or if it's down in the basement and you have the basement door locked
Locked.
up.
I was going to say, one of those landlords that locks the basement
It's
door.
locked, and now all of a sudden the tenant's there. I have no lights, and you're like 100 miles away, or you're not living
Or
there.
you're on vacation, imagine
You're on
that.
vacation now. You got the key in your pocket. It's like, what? Now what? You know, small things like that can be uncomfortable. But you as the landlord have to prepare for these different things.
And then that's unexpected. I mean, from personal experience, it could be 1 a.m. Your tenant calls you and sends a video to your cell phone. There's a bat in her daughter's room. What do you do at 2 a.m. when there's a bat in the room? Animal control is not open at 2 a.m.
That's right. Maybe the bat came in through maybe one of the drop ceilings, or they pushed the
Exactly.
window up, and all of a sudden they didn't pull the screen down, and the bat flew inside the room. I remember that one.
Yeah, exactly. So remember, if you want to be a landlord, you have to be able to, it's not just a matter of sitting back and collecting money passively. It is a passive income way of making money, but there may be things that go wrong with the property that you have to correct. Remember, you are the landlord. You're the, what they call, we hear a lot of New Yorkers say, you're the super. You have to make sure that the property is well maintained.
Exactly. So, as I said, we have a lot of people that are looking for the two-family homes, and the theory is, okay, I've been a tenant for all these years, so therefore I'm going to buy a two-family, and what I had to pay my landlord and pay his mortgage, I'm going to get someone to pay my mortgage.
Mm-hmm.
But when you become that landlord, you realize that the landlord's job wasn't all that easy.
Yeah.
You may have handed money over to him every month, but you got to look at this situation here. From that money, the landlord has to pay the mortgage.
Mm-hmm.
He's got to pay the taxes.
Correct.
Got to pay the insurance. He's got to have the maintenance.
Yep.
He's got to pay the water bill. Got to pay the sewer bill. And keep up on all of the different maintenance that he probably hadn't anticipated.
Exactly.
The roof, the walls, the blockages. Maybe the sewer got clogged up.
Or a letter in the mail saying his taxes are actually going up this year.
Exactly. The taxes could go up. The parking in the driveway, okay?
Snow removal.
Snow removal.
Grass cutting.
We can go on and
On
on
and on.
and on and on.
It sounds like it's not fun to be a landlord.
You know, so there's what, in other words, you have to go into it with expectations of
Yes.
all of these things, and you have to run it like a business. Being a landlord is a business. You have a profit and loss statement. In other words, what are your profits going to be?
Yes.
What are your losses? Hopefully you won't have too many losses, but you still have expenses. I like to call it expenses more than I would say losses.
Yes.
Because you have expenses, and you have to write all of this down. And when you're looking for a two-family house, it's easy to look and have the real estate agent show you, okay, this is the cost of the house, and this is what your mortgage is going to be. But we just named about 8 other things that have nothing to do with the mortgage. Some
Exactly,
of those
nothing to do with
things,
the
the
mortgage.
maintenance, the snow removal, the cutting of the grass.
Or how about the obvious one? What if the tenant doesn't pay your rent? What if they're fired from their job? What if they say, I'm not paying you, evict me? That's 3 to 5 months you could go without income.
Exactly. Not only without income, how about the attorney's fees?
Oh, yes.
In other words, we're not trying to scare you. We're just telling you the realistic part of all this and the things that you have to consider when you're buying a multi-family house. It's work. It's definitely, it's not, when they say passive income, they don't mean you buy the two-family and you just pass out and lie there and just collect rent. And that's not the kind of passive income they mean.
Not at all.
They mean you work at, let's put it this way, the average landlord earns his money. Now, where landlords get in trouble is where if you have a absentee landlord, he doesn't do any maintenance, he
Yes.
doesn't fix anything up, he doesn't make any repairs or do anything like that. So that's not a good thing. It's a two-way street. You expect the landlord to take care of the apartment, to fix up the repairs and to do the maintenance, and everybody gets along. Now, a lot of people are saying how the rents have increased, and I'm going to tell you why rents have increased,
Yes.
other than just the landlord going up on the rent. You take, for example, a person who's had a house for maybe the last 30 years. Maybe the mortgage is paid for. He doesn't have a mortgage, so all he's got to
Exactly.
pay is taxes, insurance, water and sewer. So maybe the rent was only $800, $900 a month.
Covers all that.
So he's got it made. He can, it covers his expenses. Now the house, he decides to sell the house. What's the biggest thing that we get when renters come in? What's the biggest thing they say?
The landlord
Landlords
has sold the house, or the property is being sold, and the landlord wants to move his family in. They're not renewing my lease.
Right. Most of the time, what we get is people that are coming to rent because the landlord sold the house. Now, why did the
Exactly.
landlord sell the house? A lot of times it's because the rents were low.
Yes, we're retiring, getting out of there. He's tired of being a landlord.
He's tired of being a landlord and not making any money. And believe it or not, and this is almost like the funny part of it, most landlords sell the house because their relatives live there.
Oh yeah, that too. They want to.
He
They
wants-
can't increase the rent. Their aunt lives there.
Right. They're ashamed to increase the rent. Oh, my brother lives upstairs. Oh, my niece lives upstairs.
Yep.
Oh, my nephew lives upstairs, and he's been paying this amount of rent, and I'm not making any
Don't
money.
have the heart to increase the rent.
So I'm selling the
Selling
house.
it. I don't want to be the bad guy. Let the new landlord be the bad guy.
Let the new landlord come in and kick him out instead of
That
me.
happens.
And so I'm selling the house. So what happens is that, if you got a good deal going and you have a low rent, just be aware that that's only going to last for so long.
It's not forever.
And the economics of it is that whoever owns the house, if it's a relative of yours, they're not making any money, they may be losing money. So there's only going to be a point in time when someone's going to knock on their door and say, hey, I'll give you $350,000, $400,000 for this house. And their eyes are going to brighten up because they're thinking, whoa, I'm not making any money now. And I'm subsidized. I'm taking care of the niece upstairs.
You're right.
I'm taking care of the brother upstairs, and I'm tired of this. So I can cash out, get all of this money, let that other landlord take care of. So now that other landlord comes in. Now the landlord that comes in and buys the house,
He has a mortgage.
he can't charge you $800 because he's got to pay a mortgage of $350,000, $400,000, whereas your
Yes.
relative, the last landlord, didn't have any mortgage.
No mortgage.
So now he's got to figure that in. Now maybe the insurance company hasn't been out there in maybe 15 years. So the insurance company is charging a real low rate. They haven't seen the house and they just keep charging the payment. Now the new insurance company says, oh, we got to come out and see the house.
Yep.
Then they come out and they go, oh, the rates have increased. We've had floods in the United States. We've had fires. This house is in a flood area.
Or the house's value has increased.
The house
It's going
is
to cost
worth
us more to replace it.
Exactly. Because now the house is selling for 2 or 3 times what they had it insured for. They're
Exactly.
like, oh, well, now the bank requires that we insure this house for $400,000.
Exactly.
So the insurance went from maybe $3,000 a year to $7,000.
Wow.
And the taxes went up. Everything went up. So now the new landlord is saying, wow, I got all these expenses. So the tenant got to pay some of this. So now your $800 a month rent just went up to maybe 12,
14.
15.
We've seen some 100% increases.
And now the tenant says, I'm not staying here, I got to move. But then when you go out there, maybe the tenant has been there for the last 15 years.
20 years.
20 years. Now when they start calling around and they're saying, I'm looking for a 3-bedroom apartment. How much rent are you willing to pay? Oh, $800, $900. And then on the other side, there's silence. Like, how much?
Exactly. I'll say, not to interrupt you, but one thing I see a lot of people are surprised when they jump back into the rental environment after being out for 20, 15 years. The majority of landlords are asking for 2 months rent. They want 2 months rent as more security for them. It doesn't matter if you have good credit or bad credit. They want 2 months rent. And if you have bad credit, they may want 3 months in some situations.
Exactly. And what happens is that this security is to be held into an escrow account for any repairs
Yes.
or any maintenance that you incur, or not you incur, that you create while you're there. You or your guests. Remember, it's you or your guests.
Yes.
So that, this is the money that you have to save up.
Let's tell them this. These landlords may think you get that security deposit. That's a good chunk of money. When someone moves into your apartment, you got 2 months rent. That's not money for you to go and spend. That's money you're supposed to put in an account and build interest that you must give back to that tenant when they move out. That's not free play money. And also, for the tenant side, we must tell them, when you have a landlord that moves, sells the house, and you're still there, the new landlord comes in, and you decide to move because you know he's going to increase the rent, and you ask him for the security deposit, and he tells you he doesn't have it. Remember, by law, he has to give you your security, whether or not he got it from the previous owner.
Exactly. Not only that, there's an interest that has occurred.
Yes, interest.
As long as you made your payments on time. If you were deficient and you paid your payments late, then they do not have to pay you interest for those months that you were paying the rent late. So just realize that what we're trying to say is it's not a piece of cake being a landlord.
Now, I was going to say, but people are going to rebuttal to this. Well, Mr. Scott, I'm taking the course right now, house hacking. It says hire a management company. They'll do everything for me. That's when you're in big trouble. Because think about this management company, they're looking at their pockets, not yours. They're going to call the best exterminator. They're going to call the best, as not saying you should, but you should shop around for the best value.
Right.
When you have a middleman, they're going to kind of fog the what you can see in the house. As far as if you live in New York, your property's in Connecticut, you're going to want to be a hands-on landlord. Don't hire a management company. At least that's my recommendation.
Mine also, especially if you need to get some experience as to what you're doing. You have to know what the expenses are. If you start off from a hired management company right away, how do you know? You have a water heater that needs to be replaced. They say, "Oh, that's $2,000."
Exactly. That's what they're going to say.
$2,000. Okay, all right. Who do I write the check out to?
Right.
Now, if you have hands-on experience, you know yourself. You can go look at Home Depot, see what the model is, figure out how much maybe the hot water heater only costs $600.
Or maybe it's just a piece on the water heater that needs to be fixed.
Right.
How about you go in person and check it out?
And make sure that it's even
the hot water heater.
Who knows if the whole heater needs to be replaced?
Exactly.
It could be the filament. That heats up the water. I had a hot water heater that went previously, and my electrician came over because it's an electric hot water heater, and he put the prongs there, and he said, "Oh, the filament is worn out." So he just took the 4 screws out, turned the electricity off, put the new filament in, clicked it back in, boom. I didn't have to replace the whole hot water heater, but now if you're dealing with a management company,
they're not doing all that extra checking.
They're like, "Oh, we're not going to go through all that trouble just to save money." Replace plus the management company doesn't want any future problems. So they say replace the whole thing.
Brand new, put it in there.
Brand new.
Which is okay, but it's not okay for your budget. They're going to really hit your budget. By the end of the year, after all these taxes, all these fees, management company, you'll be lucky if you break even on the house.
Well, I guess I was right in saying losses, right?
Right? You might just have a loss for the first year.
Or a whole lot more years if you don't know what you're doing.
Exactly.
Main thing we're saying is it's not a piece of cake being a landlord. It's not a piece of cake because things that can go wrong, and it's the difference between profit and loss.
Correct.
And in this environment that we're in right now, it's hard to get help. It's hard to get people that will do just piecemeal, or a plumber. You call a plumber up, he wants a whole job.
Exactly.
He wants to make $10,000, $15,000. To get a reputable plumber that's going to come out and work for like a $800 job or a $600 job. He's got to get in the car. He's got to get the gas. He's got to do maintenance. His time. He got to come and do the troubleshooting. Then he's got to go get the part. And he's like, I'm not making any money on this. I got to make this worth my while. So $600, it can go up to $1,200, $1,500.
Exactly.
Versus you as your own person doing the repair or the maintenance, or at least hiring the person, you can then get an idea. So, like I said, and like we're saying, is that management companies are okay, but mostly management companies are for large projects.
We have like 30 units, 40 units, like a lot of income coming in, so you can survive a loss on some units.
And some cities even have what they call landlord classes.
Oh, yeah.
You know, take a landlord from a HUD-approved agency.
Yes.
You can go and take and they're free. Take a landlord course to get an idea of, what you're getting yourself into. We're talking about right now the mechanics of it and collecting up the money. But one of the most important things that they need to do is learn the legality of being a landlord.
Exactly. There's
Tenants
certain
have rights.
rights and legalities. You're right.
Tenants have rights. There's laws that you have to abide by in dealing. You just can't enter the tenant's apartment anytime you feel like
Oh,
it.
no. Can't
know?
do that. We hear that sometimes. The landlord came in, you got to give them 24-hour notice. You got to make sure they know that you're coming.
And even if they say, something's broken, I want you to fix it, you can't wait for them to go to work and then open the door and just go in there and start fixing things.
Exactly.
You got to give notice. You got to let them know that you're coming, and then the estimate of the repairs, when you'll be back. You don't have to give them the estimate of the repairs, but you get the estimate of the repairs, and then you come back. So there's laws that you have to abide by when you're a landlord.
Also, I was going to say, another good thing landlords can use is YouTube. YouTube, it can teach you
Oh.
so much how to change things like doorknobs, floorboards, stuff that is simple you can handle versus calling a subcontractor or contractor someone that costs $300, $400. You can look on YouTube and say, oh, that's a simple part. I can do that, take my time with it, whether it be a doorknob or a window. Not everything needs a professional to come down there. You can do it yourself.
Exactly. So mainly, to summarize all of this up, if you are going to be a landlord and you want to buy a two-family, be prepared to do some work, do your homework, and it's not as simple as buying a single-family house. Your expenses are going to be higher. And whatever you do, you can't go by what the previous owner said the expenses would be.
Oh, yeah.
Because your expenses could be a lot more than what the previous owner's expenses were.
Exactly.
Insurance can be more. It makes me laugh. People say, well, how much is the electricity that the previous owner
yeah.
used? What's that really got to do
How's
with you? Because here's why. The previous owner might have been an older person. He and his wife retired. They're travel or they're not home most of the time. No children.
Right?
So their water bill, most of the water bill is when you flush the toilet.
Yes, that's true.
Or
People don't realize
do the
that.
cooking.
4 gallons every time you flush.
Light bill, we've got all the lights on in the house, or electricity. So now, that person leaves, there's just 2 people living there. Now you come along, you got 3 children, you, the wife, who knows who else, the tenants come in. So the expenses that they gave you, your expenses could be 4 times as
4
much.
times. Especially we live in 2023. I mean, we have technology. Everybody has an Echo Dot in their room. Everyone has a smartphone that's charging every day.
Got them iPads,
Electricity
this,
is going to be massively increased if you have a tenant who's been there for 50 years and they're older versus a young family who's growing.
So and then the water and sewer bill could be 3-4 times as much as the other
Yes.
people. Maybe the other people, like I said, they were rarely there. So when you do your expenses, you got to look at your expenses. What are my expenses going to be? And you have the rent accordingly, where you don't want to, I see so many people, and we work with so many people, they want to get the most rent that they can. They want to gouge it out, make the highest profit. Well, that does not necessarily win out, because if you charge too much rent and the people are going to stay there only a short period of time, and you lose because they're no longer there because they say, oh, the rent's too high. I always say, if you're going to get the perfect tenant paying you a whole lot of money, how long do you think they're going to rent an apartment? They're going to go buy a house.
Yeah, exactly. So this is overpriced.
They're going to buy a house. So now you got, out of that 12-month period, you got 3 months going into the next year where your apartment's empty.
Now, you always got to think about who's going to rebuttal this. Some people may say, well, Mr. Scott, I just get a Section 8 tenant, and they'll pay me by the government, never late, on time. But you must remember, when it comes to Section 8, there comes Section 8 inspections. That property, if you bought it and there were some problems, those problems have to be fixed, and fixed yearly. There's a yearly inspection, things to be up to par.
That's right.
And if you don't fix those repairs, they will stop the check.
That's right. And the amount that you're paid can vary because there's a...
You can't charge anything.
There's a rent that you are contracted that they're going to give you, but the tenant's portion can vary. in the tenant's portion, the tenant could make more money. They have what they call redetermination.
Yes.
So the tenant could say, okay, when they go into their worker, they say, okay, I was only making $50 a week. I was getting child support. I was getting this, or I wasn't working at all.
Exactly.
So Section 8 was paying all the rent. Now all of a sudden they got a job where they're making $300, $400 a week. So the Section 8 say, well, the landlord can charge the same amount of rent, but we will pay less based upon
Yes.
you being able to pay more.
And I'll say what I've seen in the past, if you have a tenant who's getting 100% Section 8, they get a job. Now remember, when they get a job, they have to do redetermination. That means they're going to be responsible for a portion of rent. At that point, there may be times where, yeah, the government came in and they paid you the portion of rent, but now you have to chase the tenant. Where's the tenant at? The tenant may not be used to paying on time. So now that's worse for you. You have to pay your bills late. So,
Right. And Section 8 tenants are good tenants.
Yes, they
but
are.
there's good and bad and all, you know.
Yes.
Just because there's that word Section 8 in front of it does not guarantee that you're getting paid every single month. And you don't have any cares or worries or anything. Just like you would with the regular market, the open market, it's the same situation.
Yes.
You know, it's a good situation as long as everything works out the way it's supposed to work out. But you have to be aware that certain things can change. And so you got to be on your P's and Q's. We're saying make sure you do your homework, make sure you look into it. And the other thing you got to realize too, there's not a lot of two-family houses out there.
Very, very low inventory.
Very
Very
few.
low.
So you're going to pay top dollar.
yes.
Supply and demand. Since there's not a lot of properties and a lot of people want them, supply is low, demand is high. Be prepared to pay top dollar, especially if you want to get a nice property
Exactly.
that's going to be carefree, doesn't need a lot of maintenance. You have to be prepared to pay a lot. Also, the other thing important, just because you want to buy a two-family house or a multifamily, remember you have to be able to move in there.
Yes.
So
that's
if that
very true.
house has leases and tenants, you can't just buy the house and kick people out because
You have to honor
want
those
it.
leases.
You have to honor the lease. So you can't go in and put people out. And if they have a lease and you tell the mortgage company or they tell you you have to live there, then you cannot buy that house.
Nope.
Simple as that. Unless the previous landlord tells them to move and they move on their own accord.
Yeah, their own
but
accord.
you cannot force people out if they have a lease.
You can't turn the power off. You can't turn the water. That's illegal. You'll go to jail.
So we don't mean to scare you, but we're just telling that we're out here in the street. We deal with this every
Yes.
day. We have multifamilies.
Yeah.
We incur this. We're just trying to keep you from being able to get into trouble and tell you some of the things that you need to do. So hopefully this session has been, gave you a lot of
I was
information.
going to tell them, now that's just two families. We're not even talking about three families
don't
and
wanna
four
get into
families.
that.
That'll be another episode.
That's another episode.
But definitely, be sure to tune in every week while we, break down each topic one by one. And we're here to help the people, like always. Do you want to do the outro today?
And until next week, God bless.
Amen.